And we're live.
We may have the world record for the most amount of podcasts done in hotel rooms. And Jason's just grabbing his coffee. It's only the two of us, so we're going to have to kind of treat this like a new ESL two-man desk.
Yeah, I think I'm the... Well, I guess I'm the... Because we're both just going to be pundits.
I think that's the label that Tom Eric would use. Yeah, I think that's the one that he would probably come up with, actually. Mm-hmm. What a time to be alive. I hope that our microphones work this time.
I know. I was so sad when I got back to my room to edit the last episode and your voice it sounded like you were away from the mic. I was like,
but we tested it.
I know.
And I was monitoring the gain. I could see that my voice is being picked up throughout. So I don't know what went wrong.
I don't either.
I'd like to apologize to all of our lovely listeners out there because obviously you want to hear my voice. You don't get enough of it in the Counter-Strike airwaves. You need to hear it again. So, but the episode turned out good. It was fun with Graham.
Yeah, it was a cool episode. We don't normally get guests that have like that perspective on things, like from the team side, the management, operational side of things.
I don't think Graham realized he was going to be used for that. I think Graham felt that he was just going to be there for a regular episode of Talkin Counter where we talk about the matches and the major.
He was like, "Are we going to talk about the Counter-Strike at all?" And we were like, "Nah, bro. Like, we don't want to talk with you about Counter-Strike."
It's not that we don't want to talk to you about Counter-Strike. It's that there are more interesting things that we can talk to you about because you and I can sit here and waffle. And at that point, it was only stage one that just wrapped, right? And we've just finished stage two now. But before we get there, today's the first, I would call it an off day, but it's not an off day. I just did media from... I had makeup in the hotel at 9:45, which I didn't need because I wasn't on camera. And then I drove half an hour to 45 minutes to the venue, which is called a trailer park. Wasn't a trailer park.
It's the Trailer Park Studios or something,
right? It was just a warehouse.
I had some players ask me about that. They go, they're sending us to a trailer park? And I was like, that's just the name of the recording studio.
Take a gun.
Yeah, you're going
to you'll be fine. So I was out there with Alex today and we were there. I think we got back maybe 5:15, which as far as media days go, that's probably one of the longest media days that I've done in an extremely long time other than an EPL.
Sure.
Because an EPL, right, we obviously were a bit more involved. That's changed. We've spoken about that before. So it wasn't really an off day. And the time now is what? 6:15?
6:15.
So today's going to be a little bit sucky for me. I like to be able to, go to the gym and get enough rest and get in some good meals and play some Counter-Strike. Now I'm going to have to choose. After the podcast, do I go to the gym, do I get food, or do I play Counter-Strike? I can only do two of the three.
Well, I'm not going to sway your decision, but me, Harry, Hugo, and I would imagine Alex are going to be playing Counter-Strike.
I might go to the gym then.
Yeah, we've been killing it.
I know. It was a joke. We got Hugo up to 30K last night. We've had a few cheaters, which is really thanks to Val for that one more time.
You had a tweet, didn't you?
I did. That guy, right? That train game. So we loaded in. I didn't show the 3 awesome one-tap kills I got towards A main on the start of that pissed around.
Yeah.
But that guy being last alive. And I went and watched the demo, and so he goes high ramp. He takes a duel, I think, towards you.
Me.
Yeah, and then he shoots 3 bullets, and he's a bot. And then everyone else is dead. So he alt tabs, looks into a wall, turns on his cheats, come back in, and then just cheats. So I just abandoned. So the 30-minute ban was pretty cool. I thought it was really nice.
That was a good break.
Yeah, but the North Americans, I will say, have been pretty good at kicking cheaters. I didn't expect that.
We've had 3 of 5 cheaters, I'd say, get kicked from the game.
Yeah, that Sinners guy was definitely cheating, but didn't get kicked, but we still beat him because he's a fucking bot.
Yeah.
There's also one on Nuke that was cheating too that I think we beat.
That's the thing. I don't know if this is the proper mentality. I don't know if this is the right mentality to have. But I'm just like, if you're going to cheat, at least just wall hack. Don't
you want him to hide it a bit?
Well, I don't know. I don't mind.
You want to increase their game sense.
I just figure the people who are cheating just kind of suck at the game, and we know this. We can beat a shitty wall hacker.
It's true.
We can beat shitty wall hackers all day.
Yeah.
But if you're going to spin bot, that's just unreasonable. If you're going to try and cheat, at least give us a chance, right? At least... And again, it's probably not the right mentality to have because it should be just don't fucking cheat. But, I can set a challenge for myself mentally to beat a wall hacking cheater.
Sure. And we've done it before. And we'll do it again.
An aimbotting cheater is just fuck, no matter how hard I work, he's just going to toggle it in round 24. And then I wasted more of my time and energy.
Yeah, but the games have been okay. I want to get back into, the swing of CS because... it's hard when we're on the road all the time. We don't have access to our home PCs.
Yeah.
We're fortunate this time. You got us the hookup, so we've been lucky to be able to play while we're here. And then this is like my soft on ramp into the tournament break where I'll be able to play to my heart's content, which will be nice. I think you have a family, so.
Yeah, this is my gaming vacation. All the Blast production people are like, so what are you enjoying Austin? I'm like, bro, I'm just playing Counter Strike.
Yeah.
They're like, what'd you do last night? I'm like, I played like 8 games of Counter Strike. Like, I just want to play Counter Strike. Yeah. I just like this is my time. This is my chance.
It's a celebration of Counter Strike.
And we should actually mention that. Thank you very much, Intel, for hooking it up for the PCs for the major. That was very beautiful, and we're enjoying them very much.
Yeah, shout out to Kelsey one time.
Yes, definitely shout out to Kelsey.
Big help.
I have to do one more thank you really quick since we're doing things, and these are unaffiliated thank yous.
Oh wow!
But I have to thank for the camera.
Oh yeah, for the camera.
It's not a sponsor. It's not a. There's no financial obligation here, but they did send me 3 different webcams that I've been messing around. This one's kind of cool. I'm going to try and play with it a little bit. There was an AI tracking earlier you might have noticed that I couldn't really control, but like when Chad's talking, or I should say when I'm talking, I can actually just like pick to zoom in on me. Right? It's a preset camera angle. Actually, there's a microphone in my face, so that's a little weird. Squeak squeak, and then I can go to Chad when he's talking, like so.
I'm not talking, but if I was, this is how I would be talking.
Yeah.
Words would be coming out of my mouth. It'd be crazy.
And then obviously I have the wide shot for everyone. So that could be a cool little feature. But I just wanted to shout out, it's OBS Bot.
OBS Bot.
OBS Bot. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool webcam company. Sent me some cameras. They're AI powered, and this is pretty sweet. So I'm going to try and mess around with it.
I used the small one on HLTV Confirmed the other day because coming into the States, I didn't want to travel with too much stuff here for 5 weeks. So I did like a capsule type suitcase for only a week at a time. So I left a lot of cables. Normally I'd travel with XLRs and webcams and this and that. I just did the microphone, which is fortunate you were able to hook me up with that. And Lucas said the camera quality was really good. So it was 4K. So if Lucas is happy, then I know things are going quite well. But Jason, I spoke about my day. I didn't really get into details about what I did, but what did you do with your day,
well, now
Jason?
I feel really bad.
Did you do an 8-hour media day?
I did not do an 8-hour media day.
Sad.
So I had a 20-minute media day.
Ah, very nice. And I bet yours was in the hotel too.
Yeah, mine was at the hotel. It was scheduled for 11. I rocked up to make up around 10:15. They were ready to have me in by 10:30. I did about 15 minutes, nailed it, didn't have to do any reshoots, and left by like 10:45.
Must be nice.
And then I went and played up in some deathmatch in my room.
Nice.
Then I went to the pool for about an hour.
Oh, this sounds like a lovely day.
It was a great day. Laid out there for about an hour.
Bet you even had time to eat as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I actually did. I went back down to catering, had a little bit of food, and then I met with Harry and Hugo, and we went to Top Golf.
Okay.
Hit some balls. We're going golfing on Monday, so I want to get one last.
Who's going golfing on Monday?
Me, Harry,
Launders,
and Scrawny.
Okay, well you need a party of 4 to go golfing.
Yeah.
You could take a caddy. Hugo does have caddy. No, you said Hugo's going?
He does have rather caddy features, doesn't he?
He could be a caddy.
He looks like he'd be a caddy.
He'd be a great caddy.
Yeah, maybe. And we won't take a card if we have a caddy, so that'd be cool for Hugo.
He'd carry all 4 bags.
Oh, he'd be great
We're
at
just
it.
going to use one set of
I think we're just going to share. None of us are golfers. I need to stress this. None of us know what we're doing in golf.
Yeah, but you're trying.
But we're doing our best.
So if you're only going to Top Golf, you're only trying to whack the ball, right? So you haven't done any short game.
No, I've done some short game.
You have done?
So they have the simulators. We've done like 9-hole course simulators.
Wow.
They have like targets out there in the field as well. So if you don't want to just hit it as far as you can actually aim for a specific target.
Yeah. I normally in Australia when I go with my mate, there's a guy that drives the buggy collecting the balls. I normally aim for him.
Yeah, I've told all the guys if they hit the buggy man, they get $20.
Wow, put money on
Yeah,
it. Damn, okay.
Well, no one can aim.
Yeah,
we don't know where
fair
we're
enough.
Yeah, so that was my day. Then I came back and we came down here.
Okay, all right. So I got to speak to players today.
I did too a little bit.
I was able to. I guess because you saw them coming through, but mine were like media obligated conversations. I got to speak to in like an interview-esque format with just a bunch of like I guess we'd call it headline questions. I spoke with Donk, into Rops, into who came after Rops, Naf, and then followed by Woxic. And then we did some fun content, which was Alex was driving that with Major. This was an idea that Blast wanted us to do that we kind of had to do CPR on. So if it turns out shit, it's Blast's fault. We're just like we're thrown into it. Hey guys, do this. All right,
sure,
we'll try. It was Major, then it was JL, then it was Spinks and Snacks.
Did you get a good sense out of JL? Was it like, what was the vibe check like?
Oh, he was in good spirits.
Good spirits?
Yeah, I think he was in. Everybody was in good spirits. Talking to Donk was fun. We got to ride in the shuttle on the way there, so I was talking to Constantine. Constantine's always a fun guy to talk to. They did some cool content. I don't know if people caught the stuff from Spirits. They called it STV, like Spirit TV, to do with like MTV type cribs and stuff.
Yeah, I saw some of it.
Liquid also put out like a funny video where there was like a ballad being sung by nerds and whatnot.
There was like it was almost like a Michael Bolton music video-esque to like about North American Counter-Strike. So yeah, that was kind of cool.
That's happened today. And then, yeah, everybody seemed like they're in a good mood. It's obviously fun talking to Rops just about some of those topics. But people will see it in the media or where it comes out or if it comes out. So that's whatever. What else have I done in the last 48 hours? I did HLTV Confirmed after the Falcons debacle.
You've had a busy few days.
I was going off my tree a little bit about some of that stuff, which I read one comment in the YouTube comments. It was like, indignant SPUNJ is the most entertaining SPUNJ. And I'm like, man, but I don't want it so that people like me, I shouldn't swear so much. But just kind of when I get on a roll, I'm not thinking of swearing. Like I'm not trying to say the like F-bombs and all that. It just kind of flows out of the mouth when I'm on a roll. And there was a few hot topics that I got a bit uppity about. One of them was the Falcons one, which is really big, but it's had its fallout. And I've already said my piece. So really on that topic, Jason, if we want to get into the CS...
Which is the Falcons one, the fallout from not qualifying to the major?
Yeah. The 3v5. Like there's a... the thing is,
did you have any hardcore stances or stances you would say would be out of the norm?
No, I don't think they were out of the norm. I'm just saying, like, I think it's unacceptable, like the way that they performed.
I mean, the rounds they lost, right? It was like... That was like a you guys beat yourself situation. That was like, these fundamental mistakes are so embarrassing for players of your experience. Like, I don't care how little time, I should say, I guess you've had together. Like, these are, bro, you lost a 5-on-3 post plan in the B bomb site of Inferno. It's the hardest bomb site to retake. It's the first time a 2-man disadvantage has been converted by the retaking team all year.
Yeah. There's a lot that went into it.
Yeah. I'm with you. I have no I have strong feelings about it, but it seems pretty fucking straightforward. Like, what are you supposed to say other than it's not acceptable?
Yeah, like, I think when we do eventually get one with Yanko, he will probably go off at that point. He will contain it. He's on vacation right now and probably just tuning into some of the games here, there, and everywhere.
It's probably good that he's having a chance to let the emotions subside.
Yeah, but when we do one post major and we get to hear from him, I'm sure we'll get it ramping back up then, because it is so unforgivable, the type of rounds and even the way that they were playing CS. There's going to be roster changes. Kiyosuke's coming in for either Magic Score or Tessa, so we'll see what happens. But
that's the hard part too, isn't it? You already did this, but yeah, like picking which one now, I guess. Well,
I don't even think it matters.
Yeah, I guess it just I guess leading into the major, it felt like it was like definitely Magic. It felt, and then he had this one good major. So I guess the question is, does his history in this one good major make up for the really rough start to 2025?
I think the crazier part is he wasn't the problem. Like, and I don't even think Tessus was. I just think the overall team was bad. Monacy was poor. Nico was in that MRBI game was very atrocious poor for his standard.
Well, the first two games were fine from him. We're good.
Yeah, he was good early,
and then
Monacy was bad, and then everyone else was okay, and then Nico was bad, and it's like,
holy shit,
it has to be a pressure thing, right?
Yeah, and that's the hard part, is like, you can't really, there's really nowhere else to go with it than say they crumbled under the pressure. They really crumbled under the pressure. I don't know. I think my strongest feeling about it at the moment is like, I don't know the angle to take. I think, like, on one level, I think the Zonic hate and targeting is starting to get a little bit overblown and like, it's just starting to turn into like so much of a meme that everyone's having fun doing it.
Sure.
But I wouldn't place the majority of my blame there.
Where would you place the blame then, though?
I don't know.
Zonic can't make his players play.
Yeah, but that's the question, is like, is a coach at this level really, like, I know you have to always work on fundamentals on some level, but that fundamental failure is something I feel like a coach could not have actually prevented.
Yeah, but then I think we go further down the rabbit hole in the sense of, okay, so if this isn't a fireable offense, this is what, like, Prof threw the question out. He said, should Zonic be fired because of this? And then I replied and said, I had to think about it. And I replied and said, well, if he's not, then what would have to go wrong for him to get fired, right?
True.
Like, and again, I'm not the type of guy who's calling for scalps of anybody. Like, I'm not going out there saying, like, I'm not doing Cassard level tweets and stuff and, like, you know, pimp level simply not good enough stances. Like, I don't have that. Like, when the game was being played and it was poor Counter-Strike, I'm going to say it's poor Counter-Strike because I have to say what I see. That's, you know, the way that I do my job. But in terms of this thing with Zonic, it's like you could just be ripping the head off the snake so that you can get a fresh start, right? It's like, okay, so he's been there for a decent amount of time. They haven't gone anywhere. But again, is it his fault? And then you can say no, but then it's like, okay, but, well, we pay Nico and Monacy a truckload of money. I heard some figures today. I'm not going to say. Heard some figures today.
I know some of them.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jason.
Yeah.
I'd work for a year.
Bro,
I'd play for 1 year.
Bro, we'd
imagine that.
We missed the boat on the player salaries.
I missed the boat on the player salary and the stickers. Like the fact that I was first signature sticker, I got 12.5 grand. It's like, it's cool. Like, don't get me wrong. I fucking love it. But it's like, man.
I know the feeling. You're just like, fuck, 5 years later.
Yeah, if I was just good enough. Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, that is the problem. If I was just good enough, then I wouldn't. Yeah, fuck. Well, I got myself to blame. But yeah, I think like we'd be beating a dead horse at this point because the fallout, like the Zorti, I mentioned this as well on HLTV, was my favorite like comment about it. Is like it was like you wouldn't even see Bet Boom loose around like this. Just essentially the sentiment. And I'm like, damn, like that's how condemning that is in that scenario there. I think it's shocking. It's obviously the like there's a lot of people who hate Falcons because of the Saudi connection, right? Yep. And they don't like Saudi Arabia. They don't like the idea of sports washing. They don't like all of those things
naturally.
And I don't have a problem with people having that stance. That's okay. Like that's fine for them to have that stance. The problem that I do have is like I kind of remove a lot of that. And again, people are going to disagree and they say, "Oh, we should talk about this stuff," and that's okay. I don't mind what your opinion is, but don't mind what my opinion is where I'm going with this. I kind of remove all of these things from the way that I look at the teams, and this is a very strong Counter-Strike team in my mind. Whether people agree with it or not, they're also up to them. I looked at Falcons as the number the number 2 team in the world and the number 1 competitor to Vitality at this major. Yeah. And the reason that it sucks for the overall storyline, because again, the major's still going to be sick. But the reason it sucks for the overall storyline is the idea of having Mouz, Falcons, Spirit, and Vitality as locks in the playoffs with a Mongolz, with an Aurora, and then pick the poison of your other 2. You can have a Na'Vi, you can have a Liquid, you can have a G2, you can have a FaZe, you can have a FURIA. I don't really care who make those last 2 spots. It doesn't matter. It would be amazing to cap off a season where Falcons have been a contender. They've won a trophy. Mouz have been a contender. They've won a trophy. Spirit started the year as the favorite from the previous major. They won the first trophy. Then they were dethroned by Vitality. Vitality are the top dog. Can Aurora and the Mongolz do it on stage? It's like Falcons are one of the key storylines because of m0NESY and NiKo that has been removed from the equation. And for somebody who gets to tell the story of Counter-Strike and loves the story of Counter-Strike in terms of its competitive sphere, we've lost one of the fun stories.
Yeah.
Now we lose it in a dramatic way that we get to talk about it from another sense.
Yeah, because that is the other angle is like, there is the value of, that being a group stage game and having a playoff-like intensity in the second stage of the major, which like does not happen in very many situations. In Counter-Strike, doesn't happen. It happens even less, I would imagine, in other esports titles. You know, having that kind of intensity is actually crazy for that early in the tournament. But yeah, that was going to be such a cool storyline whichever way it went. Whether Vitality was able to beat them yet again, or whether Falcons was able to finally overcome them, that would have been incredible. But I don't know. In some sense, it's like you have to just kind of, I guess it's like that story of NiKo choking at majors and the difficulty of NiKo winning his first major just continues to build, which hopefully one day, the payoff is going to be there and he's going to win his first major. And then we can be talking about this as just a bump in the road on his path to that first major. Another bump.
I think this is where I'd love to just have like a hot level Maui or Thorin or Kassad level
just do
take.
It. If you've given the preface, you can do it.
No, but I don't have one. But this is where I wish that I would just go out there and say, I think NiKo's never going to win a major. Because at this point, like, you wouldn't even, I don't even think you could be that criticized for making that statement anymore.
I think people have gotten to the point where they're almost enjoying that to a certain extent. Maybe it is partially the Falcons factor as well, but I think
plays into it.
There is a lot of people who have always loved the NiKo failure to find success in the majors. There is just a club out there that just enjoys it.
Yeah, I think like Maui made a tweet saying like NiKo is the biggest major choker ever. I probably
paraphrasing, but that's the general sentiment.
But that was the sentiment. And like if you think about who else is in that column, you're struggling to pick players. Like you have Guardian, who never won a major. And then outside of that, there's definitely one or two other players.
It's one of those statements to me that like I think at the end of the day, I probably agree with it. Yeah. But it feels so fucking dirty to say it. Like I almost want to wash my hands when I'm done. Like because I don't actually want to live in that world where like it just as an accepted fact. But like how do you argue with the results, with the resume of choking that he has?
Yeah.
And specifically at majors, specifically in deciding games, specifically in third maps and series, and you're just like, fuck,
specifically
bro.
on Inferno.
Yeah.
Because I think like it was against Gamer Legion to qualify for Rio that they didn't, and it was on Inferno. Obviously Boston. Right, that's a grand final, but they were the favorites to win that one, and they dropped the ball. But that makes for such an amazing story about Cloud9, right? So that's really fun too.
Yeah.
Obviously, this one here.
He does fail in exciting ways. We can say that about him.
Yes. So he's carried the G2 shtick of always being entertaining regardless. But yeah, I think if people were coming here to get like a really hard stance on this, or like it's really driving it home, I feel like it's been driven home. They should never have lost that game. They didn't show up to this event to play the level of Counter-Strike necessary to win, let alone make it through this stage, and they deserve to be eliminated.
Yeah.
Like with competition, I always feel that you earn, right? Because you have to win, so you earn. But like a team that was, in my mind, considered the number 2 in the world, didn't play as the number 2 in the world. They played scared. They didn't play comprehensive Counter-Strike, and it was what it was.
In one sense, I'm kind of like, I don't know what your feelings are, but in one sense, I'm kind of like, it was so bad that it can't possibly change my opinion about how good they are, because it was so clearly just an atrociously bad game.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like when we leave this major, I'm still going to sit here and say they're probably a top 5 team, top 4 team.
Yeah, I think that what starts happening now, because I kind of echo your sentiment, and we know there's going to be a roster change, it's the jumping off point of there is, so what do we put this loss down to, and then how do they potentially avoid that in the future? Because you could sit and you could say, well, you can't say experience.
Right.
You can't say firepower.
Nope. You certainly won't be able to use that in the future.
You can't say prep time.
Nope.
You can say choice of prep location, but people think I'm shitting on North America when I say that. But the people who think that are playing a victim card, because you're going to get better practice in Europe than you are in North America.
It's just a reality.
Like, I like it here in the States, guys. I love Michigan, and I love Jersey. But yeah, it's just like that's a factor, right? Like the choice to stay here. There was some conversation happening about Monacy changing his schedule, which I saw.
Yeah. I don't know how much stock to put in that because I haven't investigated or asked about it myself.
Yeah, agreed. Then the other thing is, okay, so if we said it wasn't experience, it's not firepower.
That's the thing. It's like you can only put it to pressure.
It's definitely not what kind of resources they're given, because as far as Counter-Strike goes, they would have...
You would imagine there's everything you could possibly need available to them.
Let's say we could say the most, but even if it isn't the most, it's definitely within the top 3. And even if it's not in the top 3, it's in the top 5. And it doesn't fall any further than that, right?
Yeah.
Like we can have some back and forth and we can argue this or that or whatever. But they definitely, as far as World Counter-Strike goes, they're of the mega elite. So then for me, it comes down to being able to handle pressure. Being able to handle coming into this as one of the favorites, being able to come in and deliver the type of Counter-Strike necessary to have the bravado, the cockiness, like the type of, I think Donk today said the veto. He's brought the veto up. He said, like, you should know that you're better than these teams. Like, Donk didn't say it like I'm saying it. But he was like, you should know that you're better than these teams. Pick your best maps. Like, don't be scared that they're also good on this map. But
like, if you're the best team, we're playing on the map I want, and it's the map I'm going to prove I'm the best on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, to see them be 10-2 down on Nuke, their map choice, it's like, the other thing that seems so crazy to me is you have a team of all that firepower, and you choose to not play the most T-sided map in the pool. When I would think of having opening T-side weapons like Nico and Monacy, and then I would not play a T-sided map. It's like, I get it. Nuke's technical. Okay, I'm gonna pocket this.
We weren't supposed to get into this. And
I'm
here
gonna
we are.
pocket
Get in
this
there.
one. I'm pocketing it. And I want to talk about this in the future. It's about the way that certain teams are run with star players, and we'll talk about that in the future, because I don't want to. I don't want to like get stuck on this again, because I fucking spoke about it for 45 minutes the other morning.
We'll pick a guest that would be good for the combo, and we'll hit it there.
Yeah, to bounce off other people.
I don't know. It was funny because I came into the event being like, yeah, well, they look shaky in Dallas, and part of it is, obviously they finally got some time to practice with Monacy, so I felt, my argument was they're trying to implement all these ideas and had all these conversations about philosophies and reactions and how to play different scenarios, that as a player you get so focused on what you're supposed to be doing, like those conversations, and on how you're supposed to shift,
as opposed to doing,
that you're not just playing the game. Like half your brain is playing the game, half is thinking about what you're supposed to do, and it looks a little bit shaky. But that doesn't cover the collapse on Inferno. That doesn't cover that devastation.
It's not to the two other teams they lost to before that, right?
That's
and this
true,
is
yeah.
not meant to have any disrespect to an MIBR, a Lynn Vision, or a Bait. But honestly, if you're a top 5 Counter-Strike team in the world, and those are the 3 teams that you have to beat to go from
all day.
You would laugh someone out of the room. Like you would trade your fucking pinky toe like for that. Like you know that right there should be not a freebie, but an almost guarantee. Like let's say you lose one of the two. You lose to Bait, but you beat Lynn Vision. Okay, fine. You lost the map to OG. I bet you could ask half the professional Counter-Strike players here in this stage, name the 5 players on OG, and they couldn't.
Yeah, probably,
they
actually.
Get Nikados, that Buzz guy, like Device's friend, like they'd probably stop there.
And like even, I mean, we already have the example of Simple saying, you know, oh, that was about someone else, wasn't it? That wasn't OG. Fucking Bots was heroic.
Well, yeah.
Whatever, let's apply it to OG. He probably would say it about OG as well.
He probably would.
To be fair.
He probably would.
They're all fucking bots.
Hold on a second. We love all Counter-Strike teams and players equally, and we'd like to have this disclaimer to protect us and talk and counter as well as all of our
That was
members.
Yanko, Y-N-K.
Yeah, that's at Y&K on the Twitter sphere.
Well, that's a good transition. I meant to do that. Simple. The AI targeting has been just, I got to turn that off.
That's fine. I think it's a little bit funky. People can keep up with it. They're going to know that these robots will eventually kill us, and all this data is being sent to the overlords. You want to go into Simple?
Well, I feel like the transition is right there for the taking. It's like a little layup and right in front of us.
I want to.
Do we want to save some of that gold for later?
No, well, I don't want to save the gold, but I wanted to. There's 2 pressing topics in World Counter-Strike right now.
MRQ being cancelled, I'm assuming, is one of them.
Yes, that was that and the Falcons. Those are the 2.
Okay, sure. Okay, well, we've done the Falcons.
When you saw the MRQ news today, what was your initial feeling?
Who fucking cares?
Okay. Thank God, I'm not alone. I think that if that'll be quoted and taken out of context.
I know.
But no, it's not like who fucking cares. It's the sense of in our conversations that we had last year, coming into 2025 regarding the VRS, our assumption was there was going to be no RMR/MRQ/ major qualifier / this / that. The entire circuit was meant to function as the qualifier for the major. Like that was my assumption.
Yep. Yeah.
And then the MRQ happened, and I was like, oh. Okay.
This is kind of
interesting. And then they announced the dates for the MRQ for Budapest, and those dates overlapped with 3 tournaments: Rubet, CAC, Thunderpick, and
you got it.
Yala.
There we go.
Which those 4 events would all service teams from like the 17th point on the VRS or up, right? Maybe lower. Maybe the 12th team would go, or the 9th team would go, or whatever, if they really wanted some cash to some of those tournaments. But those are meant to be able to be ways for the teams who are deeper down the rankings to potentially get LAN wins and VRS points and prize money, et cetera, to move up and down the rankings. And essentially with the MRQ being over the top, like we spoke to Graham, it blocks those teams from being able to attend those events. So Graham spoke about it the other day with us in quite a more peaceful and tranquil manner. On HLTV, I kind of went off my tree about it because it became twofold. Also, that piece of news that Graham gave us regarding the MRQ not servicing Oceania as a sub-region. And I went off my tree about that because I was saying essentially Graham's sentiment of it becoming pay to win. And how could a team be able to attend that? They'd have to pay. The only one that could is FlyQuest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And then this news comes out, and like I kind of revert back to my thinking of last year of, okay, well, we could just use the VRS to qualify all the teams. However, we've come into a problem because some of the orgs have done the thing which we've been talking about late last year and early this year that I have had an issue with, and it's them choosing not to run open qualifiers.
Correct.
And this is also where Valve giving exemptions to a Blast to run an 8-team only event, but it's still a tier 1 LAN, becomes a bad thing, right? So for next year, or I would say for ASAP...
That's my question, is do we know how long that exemption is?
It's just this year.
Okay, so next year it all goes back.
But it doesn't matter. There's a whole other major before then and now. And those majors essentially prop up massive organizations.
Yeah.
So there are key issues with this. So there's the first thing that I suggest is I think the next year it gets pushed up so every event has to be 20 teams, which means there has to be a closed qualifier run at some point, but you may as well run an open qualifier into the closed qualifier. And let's say that you have 12 teams invited by VRS, then you have 8 teams invited by VRS, and then like the rest can become through open, and then you qualify, and you still do a 16-team LAN, right?
Yeah.
I know this might sound a bit crazy. It's format talk, but essentially, the long and the short of it is every event should have 4 spots that come through some form of qualification, as opposed to direct VRS invite. Every tier 1 event, that should be a minimum, right? And that should represent each region.
Yep.
Asia, South America, North America, Europe. And that might seem a little bit harsh to Europe, but if we take a look at the landscape here, actually South American teams did pretty well in the last stage, and this one Asian teams are doing pretty well. And you know, this will be something that I think it's fine. You'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
Also, you get to piggyback off of South America.
That's true. Shout out to the Brazilians. Keep going, baby.
So I think that needs to be an adjustment. So if we're not going to have MRQs, which apparently we're not because Valve cancelled them.
I mean, what's the point? Like, my general perspective, not to ruin your flow, would be like, if they're not on LAN, I don't want them.
You mean the
MRQs?
Oh, the MRQs?
Yeah.
I kind of agree, because I think that like unless you're ESL, then you're not running on FACEIT. And FACEIT has the highest trust factor out of all of the anti-cheats. That's not to say Across is bad. I don't know it. I've never used it. There's also this in-UI thing as well.
Yep,
I don't know anything about those things. But, you know, some of these events have been run without any anti-cheats and with best of one. And it's like, if we're talking about eliminating like randomness and the possibility of cheating, you're bang on. Obviously, we would probably still need these open and closed qualifiers to be run online, which is going to mean that there's still going to be that level of variance and that level of ambiguity about the
but there's enough filters in to where like any of those like aberrations that might come from an online open qualifier for your standard events throughout the year, I feel like there's enough filters to where that doesn't trickle into the major.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
I think like let's look at a few things right now. So you have Bounty, which is 32 teams. So let's say of a Bounty, 8 teams have to come through qualifiers, and it's 2 per region, right? It could be more, it could be less. Like the reason that Blast left open the wildcard thing is so they could invite a high-profile team that changed it. That's why, because they want to get the viewership there. But let's say 8 of the teams have to come through that, and the rest could come through VRS. It could be more, it could be less, but you have to do that. And then let's say for a 24-team event, like
you're thinking 25% of teams coming from open qualifiers.
I'm not thinking a flat number. I'm kind of just spitballing right now. I haven't sat down.
I'm just saying 8 of 32. I think you said 4 of like 20.
4 of 16, but you has to be 20 as of next year. Like 20 teams have to be involved at some point, which is why it's going to force some close qualifier stuff. But like with Katowice and Cologne, for example, it'd be great to make sure that, okay, so let's say we had 8 teams through to, well, I hate these fucking stages, but that's a whole other conversation. But 8 teams through to stage 2, I guess it would be, and then in stage 1, that's where you'd have to have 16 teams. But of those 16 teams, let's say 6 of them come with regional qualifiers, like 2 for Europe, 2 for here, and then 1 for here, 1 for here, whatever. Like, you know, just so that there's the ability. And people are going to say, yeah, but then there'll just be constant online qualifiers. It's like, isn't that better than having no way in? And that's great because there's more Counter-Strike, which does suck for teams who aren't in the top teams of the VRS. But the whole point is you're meant to battle in. And also, people, you talk to players and stuff, and they're like, yeah, but if we choose not to go to all the events as a top team in the season and we fuck up a couple, then it means we've screwed ourselves. It's like, well, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Like, you're meant to pick and choose, and you go to the event of your choice, and you have the pressure on you now to deliver.
It's no longer the old days where teams would show up at events and some teams would be there to win it, and some teams would be there to test a new player, test a new idea, and some teams wouldn't really give a fuck at all. Now every event you attend, you have to do well in.
Yeah.
Like don't fuck it up.
And then that's
the professional obligation you have.
Exactly. And then if it's like, yeah, but if I have that thought process every event, then I'm 100% every event. Well, that's why you don't pick to go to every event. You pick to go to the events that you know that you're going to be able to deliver 100%. So you can spend more time doing the mental health stuff with the family. You can spend more time doing the practice online. You can spend more time doing the boot camp.
Worked pretty damn well for Vitality as well.
Yeah.
They didn't go to every single event, and they're still killing it.
Yeah. So I think that there's a few things there that we've just touched upon, but the essential of this is, the way that I boil this down is, the tier 1 events, which you've had 10 of before the major, should all have some form of open qualification. And I think a minimum of 4 slots is where I would just draw the baseline. A minimum of 4 slots through open qualification. I think that should be mandatory. Then I don't have a problem with the major having 32 teams coming from VR. So that's 10 events of the tier 1 landscape. That's not including some of the other events that we had that also can get you points. But this is where we move into the next point of problem. The tier 2 circuit is not refined, right? We don't have a clear landscape for that. And I don't have a solution on how to fix that. That's something that needs to be explored. But then there is the nefarious side, Jason. And that side of things is, now that we know that it's going to be VRS points that are going to decide all 32 teams, which will still have regional distribution, then countries who already have strong land scenes, like Mongolia, like China, right, locally have strong land scenes.
Yeah, the local lands are going to be overly powerful.
Events right before the qualification point to be able to get land wins. And that was going to shoot them up the ranking, because that's not available to everyone and everywhere, right? So that right there is a loophole that Valve needs to work out how they're going to deal with and close. Because let's say, Jason, there's Chatty B and he comes into a lot of money and he wants to run $1 million Australian land for only Australian teams.
You want FlyQuest getting to that major, baby?
I want FlyQuest in the major. You know, what's to stop me from doing that? Nothing, right? This kind of problem needs to be addressed. And we need to I think the VRS is in the right direction. I've liked the first season. I've liked the direction we're going.
Yep.
But I think we need to look at some of these flaws and we need to try and button them up, because just a little bit of tightening is required. You know, you get a little bit older, maybe a little bit of nip of a tuck. I'm starting to get some wrinkles. So it's the same thing with the VRS. It needs a little nip and a tuck.
Yeah, it does. It needs cleaned up in a few areas for sure. But I mean, I think Valve is... I don't know. I have a lot of faith that Valve is going to be able to tweak it to get it to the point that it's at. I know those changes probably always come slower than we necessarily want them to, but I always feel like when they do eventually come, I have confidence that it's a good decision, that it's taking in a good direction. I feel like I'm one of the few people, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you have that same sense from after talking to them. I always get the sense of like, okay, the game's in good hands. Like it's taking a long time.
We like the devs.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I mean, that's a tough problem to solve. And my initial gut instinct when I hear it is like, I bet to some degree this is like exactly what Valve didn't want, is to have to be this hands-on and tweaking things. But also maybe it's just kind of like, let's soldier through these first 2 years of getting this in the right place, and then we can take our hands off of it. Like maybe they acknowledge that the first 2 years are going to be more hands-on than they'd approve of it usually.
The first we knew was always going to have these teething issues, right? And we need to work out a way to get through all of this. Obviously, if Valve's own anti-cheat could be at the level where we can trust it, we wouldn't have to worry about, online qualifiers anymore. But you and I, from our experience of playing games over the last week, just here in North America.
It's rough.
And we're talking either just competitive games or prem games, right?
Yeah, we get them in both.
People are cheating in either. And they're just cheating for fun. Like, they're not cheating for any other reason. They're just cheat. Like, probably they feel some like form of inadequacy, and they're sad in their own life, and they want to take it out on a couple of 30-plus-year-old gamers, Jason, and they want to... But when we're still
just trying to burn a little bit of stress off, you know, just trying to have a good time with the boys.
Yeah. Trying to make sure our analysis and commentary is really good because we're playing the game.
You know, this probably isn't a good perspective to have either, but for me, like, it's like the healthiest thing that I can do for my own brain, where I'm just like, you know what, I've been playing this game for, I'm going to age myself, 26 years now.
Yep.
And there's always been cheaters.
Yep, and there always will be.
Always cheaters.
Yeah, but not like this, though. When would you ever come into it? If you were playing like 5v5, they'd be the type of cheaters you were talking about, the ones who were trying to hide it.
Yeah.
Right? And
they're trying to just toggle it to get some information and turn it off, and then they play the game normal.
I could think of a bunch of players in Australia who I knew were cheating.
We had plenty of pros back in the day in NA as well who were cheaters as well.
Jordan, nothing Gilbert.
Yeah.
But then you look at the like rage cheaters. They didn't exist back in the day other than in public servers.
Yeah.
Right? It was just like a 32-player Aztec server, like, and then there'd be like a rage cheater in there. They wouldn't do it. Like, people weren't going into fucking deathmatch and cheating.
No.
Why would you go into deathmatch and cheat? What's the point?
The Valve deathmatch is funny though. I always feel like I'm training like an AI cheater. You ever like? I don't. Do you do it every once in a while?
I do it if I hate myself.
There's always like 3 people in the Valve DM servers who are just like bots, who when you run up to them, you just watch them slowly turn like a Terminator and then just start shooting at you. And you're like, what the fuck? This is weird.
The Valve DM is like the worst thing. And everyone who...
I don't mind it.
What do you mean?
I like the health pack. I'm just gonna say that really quick.
I don't even have that key bound, so
I like the health pack. It like is like a new level of strategy of like, get your 3 kills, find some fucking cover, reload, heal up, let's rock and roll. I think it's kind of cool.
You mean you don't like warm-up server DM where you just kill them and you get health back for the frag?
I mean, that's fine too. But what I hate about it is an easier solution in a way. What I hate about it though is like I don't get to like actually move into a fight. I don't like spawning in those like 24-person death matches and just like sit there and kill and never get to move. I'm like, I want to actually step into a fight. I want to get the feeling that I'm like hunting a fight or like selecting a battle, you know?
I see what you're saying. And okay. Yeah, I guess in the other death matches it's so rapid, right?
Yeah,
and you barely ever get to move from where you spawn.
And as soon as you try and move out of where you spawn, you're in like 4 fights. And it's...
Yeah. Yeah, and
so I mean, it's probably better in terms of like just pure volume and reaction, but
I think the thing that you're on something there, because it just becomes like pattern recognition of spawns and what you need to be reacting to with those type of death matches, which isn't necessarily training you for what you need to be trained for, which is finding the fights in these angles where they appear. That's why I think like refrag is the best tool, because like things like Crossfire and Defender and all those things, they're really good to train, and that's what anybody should be using if they want to get into it. There's this guy whose Instagram series I've seen. He's trying to get into Counter-Strike. I think he's only been playing for like 10 days. And I sometimes watch his videos and he's like, you know, he's so green and he really has like no idea, but I wouldn't say he's an old bloke, but he's definitely an adult. Like he's not a teenager or anything like that. Like for him, if he wanted to be able to get some shortcuts, to be able to learn maps, understand crosshair placement, and everything like that, his best bet would just go into refrag like once a day and spend like an hour going through a couple of the things. And I would guarantee that would help speed up a lot of your understanding of things. Even if you are super green, this is going to end up as an ad for refrag.
I mean, yeah, I know. I'm about to go off on it now too, because I know like my brother and I used to like loved it. My brother, I think, has a subscription still, because like he doesn't have time to like actually play games.
When I saw him the other day.
Like he considers it like single player Counter-Strike.
Yeah,
like, you get to just go in and like frag the bots just the same, and there's like you get the ones where they peek, you get the ones where they stagger their peak, change which angles they peek at. It's a really cool tool, and if you use it properly and you actually dedicate to it, it's definitely gonna help you improve your game. So shout out to refrag, I guess.
Yeah, we love refrag.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. Another one. Yeah, well, we got off from the MRQ stuff, but the long and the short is open qualifiers are going to be necessary to keep the ecosystem alive.
I think Snappy tweeted about that as well. Like, this is a good change, removing the MRQs only if the other rules are actually enforced in the system of open qualifiers is there. Because, I mean, I struggle to see anyone other than Snappy who's been screwed more by those kinds of things over the past 3 years.
NIP with a use case this year for how a team could climb the rankings, and they did. They've now qualified, I'm pretty sure, for Cologne.
Yep.
So, like, they did it the hard way, but they proved within one season of Counter-Strike that you can go from literally being nothing on the ranking to being a team who can get invited.
Which is cool.
It is, and obviously they have resources because they're NIP.
Yes.
But we'll get the opportunity to talk to Valve about some of this stuff in a couple of weeks' time, which is good, and maybe a bit, I don't know, like I know they used to listen to HLTV Confirmed sometimes when I would talk to them. I don't know if they bother listening to Talking Counter, even know if we do one.
I have no idea.
No, but you know, hopefully they're in good spirits and ready to chat. Like they're always
it's nice. A short flight for them. They got to be happy about this one.
There'll be more devs at this one too. So I like the fact because well, I don't really care. As far as I understand right now, like my time at the major will come to a close pretty quickly when the playoffs begin. So I'll have as much time.
Yeah, you'll have some open days,
which is actually kind of a luxury to have that I normally don't have at these events, which is fun because to get to experience the event and talk to the devs a bit more. And I even started talking to them on a bit more of a social level last time, which I think maybe they appreciated too. Yeah. Because it's like, can you just stop trying to ask us Counter-Strike questions, motherfucker, and talk to us like
we're
human
here
beings?
To chill too. Like we don't want to talk about work either.
We do this the whole time. So I think I might try that angle again with them this time because they're nice guys and they like the same thing we like. No matter how much the community wants to say they don't give a fuck, I can tell you from my first-hand experience they do. And even I get mad at it, right? Like when I did my tweet yesterday about the cheating thing.
I love that. I came back and I was like, oh, Chad's had a tweet. There we go.
Made sure I tagged you. Yeah,
that was good. It was a good clip. He was a solid shooter.
He was a really good shooter.
Yeah. We're trying to do a shorter episode, so should we hit some Counter-Strike? We're at about 40 minutes right now.
Yeah, let's do it. So stage 3 is going to start tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's obviously all the big boy teams have just arrived. They arrived either last night. I think some of the teams arrived last night, which is crazy. But most of them have been here for about a day and a half or 2 days.
Yep.
Now, I guess we can help absorb the stage 2 conversation into the stage 3 on with the teams who won.
Yeah.
So what we could do you want to go through the matchups and then maybe that could inform the conversation?
I'll just go down the old pick'ems thing.
Yeah.
Vitality Legacy is the first one.
Yeah, okay. So I guess that everybody's heard the Legacy conversation. Everybody's heard the Vitality conversation.
The Legacy angle is the interesting one.
The Vitality one we can just encapsulate quickly. They're the favorite going into the major. 30-0, nothing's changed other than they come in with fresh legs and they probably use the Falcons' loss as a wake-up call. Hello? Jane, we're doing a podcast.
That would be my wife, yeah.
That's fine. But she doesn't listen to the whole show. She only listens to little bits.
I'll link her directly to this one.
Dinko, she listens to a bit about Dinko saying he'll fuck 70-year-olds, and that's about it. So, yeah.
That was a fucking wild segment.
It was one of the greatest segments on Talking Counter history. But yeah, Vitality 30-0. Falcons losing acts as a wake-up call to them to make sure they don't take anything for granted. They come in here as one of the biggest major favorites of all time. And that's about it for Vitality.
Yeah, and Legacy, on the other hand, shouldn't even be here. It's a complete opposite story. Wasn't even supposed to be at the major whatsoever. A labored 2025. None of their players have shown potential. Dumao and Lotto, that story's been going on for like 3 years now, waiting for those guys to pop off and show that they can hit their potential. It's finally happened here at the major.
Yanko's celebrating right now.
Yeah, he's loving it. Well, I don't know. With Falcons gone, he might be bitter, but yeah, certainly in this situation, he's a little bit happy. Lux is looking like he is a solid IGL for this team. Everyone's playing well. They're playing with house money now. There's no pressure. And they're full of confidence.
What was that? What was Legacy's run?
Legacy's run.
Because like I don't care about stage one. Stage one was obviously a bit more labored from them, but
that's the thing. The three teams they beat. So they beat MIBR best of 1, 3D Max best of 1, and FaZe 2-0 in the best of 3.
Okay, so the impressive one there is the FaZe, but also the 3D Max gamer was casting with Alex, and 3D Max. I don't know. They looked a bit lost in the game, which isn't to detract again from Legacy. I think the Legacy did a really good job of being able to play the way that they want to play.
Yeah. They're playing really cool Counter-Strike. I like them a lot.
But to 2-0 FaZe, and again, I think there was like overhyping of FaZe from day one because of their performance on day one. Then they simmered out in the next 2 days, and then but they got through over MIBR. That was their most. So that was where they kind of woke up again.
Yep.
Yeah, Legacy. Look,
I think the fun thing is at this point. I think with Legacy, the fact that we're even entertaining the idea that they could come into a best of 1 and upset Vitality.
I'm not entertaining that idea.
You're not entertaining it at all?
No, they're going to go 0-3.
You don't think there's a chance?
No, I think the caliber of competition this time steps up remarkably, and I don't think they have a chance.
I don't think they'd go 0-3 if they played the way they did in stage 2. I do think they're going to have a hard time. I think they played well enough for me to feel like they're not going to. I don't know. I guess the question always is when you come into it, if you're Vitality, it's that kind of like, do you have the rust?
It's fresh legs.
Yeah.
It's rust with fresh legs. Yeah.
That also didn't really carry on in stage 2. Like stage 2 teams.
Yeah, it was
pretty much beat stage 1 teams.
Only
right?
3 teams from stage 1 out of the 8 made it to stage 3. So that means 5 out of the 8 teams were from stage 2.
Yeah. So that didn't really carry on, but it has in previous majors.
But that's the whole point of these stages, I guess, is like a jumping competition, which is why it was so surprising that Legacy made it.
Yeah.
And with 2 scalps of 3D Max and FaZe who also made it. So it's impressive from that sense, but look, I will gladly end up in like a montage as like, they're definitely going 0-3 this time. Like, I'll gladly have that because if they defy my expectation again and make it to the playoff, like this is why it's a Cinderella run because people doubt it, right? And that's what makes them the underdog.
Yes.
Because if we're like, Legacy have just become one of the major favorites now. I think they're fucking sick. They played such good Counter-Strike. I think they're now going to take on Vitality and beat their win streak. It's like, that's kind of just, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah.
Do I just think that nothing else that happened in the year has any credence at all? Like, do I just think it was all a waste of time? Well, no, I don't. I think it does matter. And I think Legacy are going to have a tough time because of the jump in competition.
Absolutely. I think it's probably more possible than you do, obviously, because I would entertain the idea. But I think for me to entertain the idea,
you and Dad are mates.
Yeah. Well, also I do love the story. I have become like emotionally, in some level, invested in that whole story. I like the idea that they've struggled for like 3 years, and these 2 players, Lotto and Dumao in particular, have like been.
What about Barton, Jason? Don't forget about Barton.
I was going to get to Barton. He was coming up at the end,
but he's not there anymore, Jason.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to bring him up. But I think that's cool. I think the idea that some team had to like struggle for like this entire year to like hit their potential, and it happened. This for me is like the 180 is like the contrast to to simple.
Okay.
It's like when I look at Legacy, I'm like, you guys have been grinding to prove that you're good enough, and you failed and failed and failed and failed and failed, and everyone fucking gave up on you. I know, like from talking to these guys, Lotto and Dumao, I mentioned on the desk a couple of times, they've given up offers from tier 1 organizations and tier 1 teams to stay within this team. Like orgs that have way more money, way more things to offer.
Why
way
are
more
they
everything.
Queseradoing themselves?
I don't know, but it's paying off better than Queserado at the moment. But, like those 2 players have stuck in that team despite the fact that most of them have gotten multiple offers from different organizations and different teams that could offer them way more money and probably way better teammates. And then once they got the opportunity, failed to get here, and then once the opportunity just fell into their lap like the golden fucking goose, they picked it up and ran with it. I think that's really cool. That. I think it's really cool. And that's the contrast to the simple conversation who didn't do the grinding, just kind of got the opportunity and then started started grinding, and now he's here. And we're obviously gonna get into him later. But I like that story of legacy a lot. And
I like the story.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just don't think they'll beat Vitality.
I don't think they'll beat him either. But I think there's a world in which they can. I just think it would require Vitality to come in and look really rusty.
Yeah.
The problem is Vitality's always already shown us that their D game is like most teams' A game.
Yeah.
So it's like even if you show up rusty, one of those 5 players isn't going to be.
Yeah, obviously there's the tension that Vitality will have coming into this of being such a favorite. And I think the fact that Legacy are warm into the situation works in their favor. And they, in every stage, have nothing to lose because they were never even meant to be here.
Yes.
But at a certain point, that will catch up with you.
Yes. Well, and I think one of the things that might go against them, too, is the 3 days off. Or 2 days off, or whatever.
Well, it's free out. You're right. It will be 3 days off.
They'll have 3 days off, so a little bit of that heat, a little bit of that momentum kind of dissipates, I would imagine.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. Who do Lynn Vision play? Because they played every day.
This is a fun game.
Oh, this is Liquid, right?
This is Lynn Vision Liquid, and that is a fucking trap for Team Liquid if I've ever seen one. That is a mud pit that you don't see coming.
Well, they can see it coming. I don't know if they can get out of
it. That is like the easiest upset looking at this list to go for.
I hope that they have the fake bravado to play Anubis, even though that's a map Shui never used to play, and that already didn't look great for them.
Well, they just announced him as a full-time in-game leader as well today.
Well, that's future-proofing, so I understand that, right? Like, even if this roster doesn't work at this major, you keep him as your mantelpiece in-game leader, and you keep the pieces like a Nerds and a Twist.
And you build the team that he wants to build.
And you can change the other pieces. You know, you can do whatever you... And maybe they stop being American, Jason. I apologize. But maybe it had to happen one day. But in terms of Liquid, I find it hard to quantify my level of expectation for this team at this event because it has been a topsy-turvy year. I think that obviously they have the experience. Like Shui's been in a major grand final. I think Nertz has been a strong figurehead player over the last couple of years, obviously with Ents into Heroic, now Liquid. And then you have the pedigree of Twist and Naf. Twist, who's still very young, you wouldn't expect it considering what his cabinet looks like. And I think Naf's turning 27 soon, or maybe 28, I forget. So he's still, in that age where it's all good in the hood. It's just Ultimate who's still needing more and more reps at this level. But they don't have a coach. No, I don't like saying that. They don't have an emotional coach. They have Mars Darova, right? Mars
He's not a Counter-Strike guy. He's a stats guy, so turn analyst.
Seems like a strong in-game leader. So I don't know if he needs a strong coach.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
They don't have Edward with them anymore, I don't think.
Don't they?
No.
I didn't know that. Okay. So they've lost. They don't have a mental coach.
They got Steve.
They don't have a coach whose focuses on the mental aspect.
Steve.
They got Steve. They do it. They'll always have Steve. Steve is a reliable pair of socks.
Steve's eternal.
It's always going to be there for you.
So, look, I don't have any expectation of Liquid. That doesn't mean I think they will lose or they will beat
I don't know what to expect out of them either.
I have literally no way to pin the tail on this horse.
I heard I heard they made progress doing their boot camp. I didn't hear any no one had the bravado of we've been wrecking scrims and we've been beating everyone.
From the camp.
That was coming from the camp. They felt they made progress during the boot camp.
I take words from the camp very lightly.
Okay, I do too. But they didn't give me it. But this wasn't like bravado. This was just like we made progress.
Okay, so I wasn't saying they were being cocky. What I meant was that it's hard to take what the team says because if
it's very easy within a team to feel like you're making progress.
Sure.
It's very easy to be like, oh, we've improved so much.
Yeah. Well, I guess
then get smacked in the face in an official match at the major and best of one against a Chinese team.
Well, see, this is the thing. Lynn Vision are another one that's overperformed, and I've really liked their story because, Call Me Sue is Chinese but also American.
American, baby. He's one of ours.
Even though he's flying the Chinese flag, Jason. So
that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
We'll allow it.
But Zaka, I think, is really fun to watch in the AWP for a player who wasn't even the AWPer on the team when G was there.
Yeah.
Right? For him to take over the AWP and be as fun on the AWP as he is, I think it's great. I really like what we've been getting out of Amelia, not just in the fragging department, but in the attitude. Amelia's a character.
Yeah, he's great.
An absolute character.
Him and G really lit it up at this event.
Yeah, well, you and G have a bit of a bromance going on.
We do a little bit. It was a great time.
Emotional guy, G.
He's a lovely hugger. He's very, very firm, but soft at the same time.
Okay. It's fun that G and Amelia were teammates, and they're both... I don't want to say... I was going to say anti-Chinese. Now that might get them in trouble. I don't think that they're anti. What I mean is, and even Amelia said it on the desk, is the way that I'm going to have to put words in
the
his
way
mouth.
it's like the way I had it explained, and I think this is what you're getting at, is Chinese fans value a different kind of personality. They root for a different kind of personality.
Put that so tactfully.
Yeah, the strong, silent type is what they prefer. So G and Amelia are kind of like outside the typical wheelhouse. Although, from what I know as well, Amelia has like a really, like heartfelt story behind his gaming. So there's a certain level of Chinese fans.
His mum in there.
Yeah, suffered from depression and found Counter-Strike as the outlet to get over it, and a lot of Chinese fans have rallied him there. It is sad to hear when you hear that Chinese fans just don't really appreciate G for the person that he is. And I'm like,
poor
my
G.
brother, we got you.
We love you, G.
Yeah, whenever you need it, come on over here.
We got plenty of ice cream. But I guess that's more of a big picture story with the Chinese teams is the type of Counter-Strike, and you would remember this because we're both as old as these walls of this hotel, is like when Chinese teams and Korean teams back in the day, like Project KR or the Tylus of the world, they were just known for being the same as what they've been known for in CSGO and CS2, is just quite aggressive and very aim-based and off-meta. And I played against a lot of these teams for the longest time, and it was just in your face. It wasn't on meta CS. They didn't rely on executes a lot. They definitely didn't have the fundamentals down in the same way. But now I don't think that's the same conversation that I would have about a Chinese team. I definitely would still lead the conversation with saying that they have very strong individuals, but they have a much better meta understanding. They're good at mid-rounding. They can play the puzzle game of Counter-Strike. So I have nothing but respect for the leaps and bounds they've made, while Australian Counter-Strike has had a hard time being able to do the same.
And North American Counter-Strike as well, where I think one thing the Chinese teams have done and players have done that's really impressive is they've taken those qualities and those characteristics that you just mentioned of Chinese Counter-Strike that they're known for, and found a way to meld it with the European. You still see Chinese players in the moments, none of them are afraid to swing into a fight. They never have fear. You very rarely see them hesitate to swing, where sometimes you'll see a European player or North American player, second guess it, shy away from it for a moment, wait for a teammate. Those guys are just willing to swing and fight. They're willing to get into trades. And I think as well, when you look at the way Counter-Strike is being played at the moment, I've talked to a couple of the pro players here at the media day about it as well. The meta has shifted in so many ways, and game is played so differently now because of MR12 for one thing, makes underdogs a little bit easier, makes momentum Counter-Strike a little bit easier, makes it easier to kind of call when you have an economic advantage as well, because it's so punishing. And a lot of Counter-Strike is being played way more grouped up than it was towards the end of CSGO and the start of CS2.
A little more 4-1 going on.
A little bit more, 4-1s and death balls are a little bit more prevalent everywhere you go, and I think teams are happy to kind of group up, especially if they feel they have an advantage in the economy, and just group out of a bomb site and hit a timing execute, I think, and play the trade game in.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on. I think all that kind of lends itself towards Chinese Counter-Strike having more of an impact, and it probably helps move the needle. But I mean, when I say all that too, I'm like, isn't this kind of characteristics of North American Counter-Strike that they should be able to hit on as well?
Sure.
Isn't there that factor in North American Counter-Strike over the years where it was all aim and no brain? You don't need as much of a hardcore tactical brain anymore. You need a strong caller who's able to recognize the moments where he needs to get tactical and needs to where his team needs him to call them into a win, and then also recognize, I can call something simple here. We have an advantage in this area.
It's got to be a population-based thing though, right? This isn't an American dig. I also would apply this to British Counter-Strike as well as Australian Counter-Strike and whatnot. Maybe it's a socio-economic thing, but there's part of this where we've been to China and at these events, and the fans are some of the most enthusiastic, right, in terms of how much they idolize Counter-Strike players. And that definitely doesn't exist in the US. That definitely doesn't exist in Australia.
No.
And that's not to say those are the reasons that Tyler and Lynn Vision are playing better, is because their fans like them a lot. That feels super reductive. But what I mean is that it kind of says something about the overall culture of the way that the game is looked at or accepted.
It's indicative of the player base / viewership base being invested in the game, in which case those essentially, you think, X percentage of the viewer base is going to be converted into players. X amount of those players are going to be converted into competitive players. X amount of those competitive players are going to be turned into aspiring professional players. And that's the pool you get to choose from as a team. And in most regions, that kind of pool has been shrinking, especially in North America. I imagine in Australia, it's always been small. In other places, it seems to be popping off and growing.
So, okay, respect to Chinese teams. Liquid, we don't know. What do we got next?
Mouz versus Pro.
Okay, so I think the Mouz conversation is a short one because they pick up where they left off. Right, and now that Falcons aren't there, that's one of the teams that they've had a bit of a back and forth with. So it's now just a 3-man pool of the top dogs. So Mouz are still in that conversation. I don't see any reason that they would drop off from that. And traditionally, they do pretty strong in group stages, which is essentially
not
what
group
this
stage
is.
merchants anymore, but still very strong in group
Exactly.
stages.
So then the main conversation of this would be about Virtus Pro. Now, I actually got to cast a couple of their games, and I especially got to do their best of 3 against Pain. And I mentioned this on Confirmed as well, and I would recommend this to our viewers too. If you haven't watched that series and you're looking for something to do before tomorrow's matches kick off, go watch the Pain versus VP series, because I thought it was quite entertaining.
From a gameplay perspective, or from a
overall,
VP perspective?
No, for both teams.
Okay.
It was 2 close maps. It was quite fun. Mirage went into overtime. Had some really nice moments from both teams. There was some cool plays. I'm not sure if everybody caught like the Flit Goose move where he got like a quad kill from Goose. 2 of his teammates, the A defenders, baited him in, and then he had to save the AK. And there was just some really nice moments, and it was a fun game. And I think that VP coming into this event I framed that match as 2 of the biggest disappointments of the year. Obviously, for different reasons. Pain had issues regarding Rix having to stand in for either Big U0 or DGT, and then they also changed Cowards for DGT at one point in the year. So Pain have kind of been hamstrung by some of their own choices, but some unfortunate circumstances. And then on the other side, VP are a team with a lot of firepower. They have 3 major winners, 2 from outsiders, 1 from Na'Vi. Then they have talent in Flamus. They've changed coach 4 times in the period of just over a year, and they haven't lived up to the ability that the firepower says they should be. The games that I had casted of them in the past were a bit off meta. It felt like it lacked cohesion. There was a lot of electronic frustrations. He gets labeled as egotronic. And then he comes into this event and he plays very well, and the team looks great. The mood's looking at an all-time high, and I like the Counter-Strike I saw from VP.
I did too. I was surprised at that as well, because they're a really annoying team nowadays. Well, always, actually. I just don't know. Like, every time I get excited about them, they're going to disappoint. Every time I'm disappointed and give up on them, they do something cool. And this happens to be one of the times where I gave up on them and they do something cool. I don't know what to make of it. So now you
believe, and then they disappoint you again?
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. That's why I'm kind of avoiding putting an opinion on it. But, I mean, I guess my one question I have about this team, one, they didn't struggle at all. In the best of 3.
Easy.
They won the best of 3 2-0, but they were close games. But Bait was 13-3, OG was 13-2.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Bait and OG didn't make it through, while Pain did. But they blew those more inexperienced teams out of the water, which is what you would have loved to have seen from the Falcons. Keep talking, Jason. Turn the aircon off.
Yeah, you're all good. I guess like one thing that I would say I heard this about Virtus Pro at this event is like one of the big changes that they felt was made coming into this through like the boot camp and through some of the time in 2025 was Electronic kind of realizing that he needed to scale back the amount of pressure and criticism and heat he was putting on his teammates. That's
hilarious.
No, I know. Again, I don't know how true this is. This is just one of those things. I haven't spoken to anyone in Virtus Pro. It's just one of those things that you hear from talking with players and other people in the scene. And yeah, I don't know like what that would be, but great if that's the case and obviously yielding results. But my question for VP is, what happens when you lose a map? What happens if you lose a best of 1? What happens if you lose the first map in a best of 3? Does it spark back? Like, well, how does this team? We've seen they can come into this event after a long break and after time away. Their last event was Astana, which wasn't too long ago, but we've seen them be able to come in and recover things and look good. But if you get punched in the face, what's your reaction? What's the response?
Yeah, because the vibes did look immaculate when they were playing there. Those frustrations weren't there. There was even a moment where Electronic was apologizing to Flamus.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never seen this before.
Yeah, you're like, no, did you find Jesus? What the hell just happened?
What happened? Something happened to Electronic within that time off. So I think that their logo is a polar bear. Maybe we should call it a bipolar bear. You like that one?
I actually like that way too much.
Just came up with that right there.
I actually like it way too much.
You can use it on the desk. It's all yours.
I will, actually. I'm going to.
All yours, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is another one which is like, if they can play to the level that we just saw at the group stage, there is no reason that they cannot be one of the teams who either make it in a 3-1 or 3-2 game.
Wait, say that again?
If they play the same level of what they did in stage 2, in stage 3, in my mind, they could be a playoff team. They are in the conversation for one of the 2 spots, which is now actually 3 spots because we don't have Falcons anymore.
Yeah.
Like, in my mind, the playoffs, and it won't go down this way because it's a major, and that's okay. But the playoffs should be Vitality, in no particular order, Vitality, Mouz, Spirit, Aurora, Mongolz. Then the last 3 spots I did 4. Last 3 spots are open for conversation.
Okay.
And I think VP fall into that conversation now.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I would agree with that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be like that's kind of what we were promised when the year started when we saw them at Katowice, right?
Yes.
Qualified for the playoffs, had the visa issues.
Flamus couldn't play.
Flamus couldn't play. and then they got eliminated.
They played
and
with
then they've never
Mia?
been back there yet.
They played with Mia.
Yeah, he came in.
Yeah, that was pretty mid.
Okay, well, I'd love to see that same VP. Next one, Spirit Pain.
So Spirit go in the same category, the way that we talked about Spirit.
We know the story of Spirit.
Yeah, exactly. Reigning major champions have had a bit of a shaky year. Would look forward to them continuing to play well, and I'm curious of what the time their last event was a win.
Yeah.
So that's all good stuff.
Yeah.
You said it was against Pain, right?
Yep. Which is like Pain was always like a trap pick coming into stage 2, just because of all the stand-in situations they've had to play with since DGT arrived, not being able to use him at a few events, coach standing in, players standing in for 1 or 2 events, him coming in late to an event. They looked great. I haven't covered many of their games, so I haven't seen them up close too many times. They look really good. Results look really good. I still don't necessarily rate them with the ability to beat Spirit, although best of 1 factor.
I don't think they should be able to beat Spirit, but I do think that they can beat other similar teams. They can beat a FURIA, they could beat an Amiga, they could beat a Lynn Vision, they could beat a G2, right? So that's kind of where I'd categorize them. I like, they have a bit more output with DGT in the team, I think, than what they have with Cowers. I think that goes without a doubt. If NQZ is having a game with an AWP, he can just be just as good as the other comparable AWPers in the world. Yep. But he can look shaky when the pressure's on. And that's one thing, it hasn't looked the same for him this event. He's actually been a bit calmer. Even in that series I was talking about before, he was going toe-to-toe with Icy. There was a good level of back and forth between the two of them. I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind is in a lot of these games, if teams get enforced by wars, which is probably more likely against high-rated teams, because they will have the ego to force buy, and they're more likely to beat you with a force buy, which is going to slow down your roll until you can get an AWP out. Yeah. So can't put all your chips in the NQZ basket for him to be able to deliver time and time again. But I think, I would just simply say that I think finally for Pain, they've had an opportunity to play with the team that they're hoping to without any issues. And again, they fall into that category of a squad who could beat those names that I just said. I would say that they are not completely without a shot of making the playoffs, but they would be they're not in my completely unlikely, but they're not in my locked.
Do you think the chances of them, like where you think Pain can beat Spirit when you didn't think Legacy could beat Vitality, is that more of a conversation around Pain or around Spirit?
I think that,
you know what I mean? Like, do you see like a world in which Spirit comes in shaky, or do you think Pain is that good to where they could overcome?
I have a hard time seeing Donk playing poorly against Pain. Yeah. And Donk alone is enough to beat Pain because of how good he is. Yeah. And Donk can have an off half when Mouz have counter-stratted every move he makes on Nuke and understand exactly what they need to do to own him. But if they get onto a map where, like Dust 2, and Donk just gets to freely look for jewels, there's nothing that shakes this kid's confidence because he doesn't have the fear of God in him. He is God, right? Like, so Sure. I have a hard time seeing, like, I would say that I could see more of a chance of Vitality losing their opening game, which I don't think would happen, than Spirit losing their opening game. Okay. But maybe now I've said that, do I actually believe it?
Yeah, when you say it out loud, does that actually hit the same than it in your head?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
I think if it was a tactical map and it was a bit slower, that's where I think that Spirit would have a harder time. And I haven't really looked at what the veto would come down to between these two teams. So I think the veto is obviously going to play quite a role in this. So, yeah, if you look at Pain, unfortunately for them, and it's skewed because of the coach situation, etc. But, like, they ban Ancient and Spirit ban Inferno. If they could get it down to a Dust 2 or a Mirage, or...
Well, Pain's played Train 3 times and haven't won it once. Mate. They've played Anubis 4 times and haven't won it once.
There you go. If it's Dust 2, Mirage, or Anubis, I think Spirit win.
Oh, there's too many maps they just kind of suck onto. Ooh, that's going to be rough in a best of 1.
Yeah, they don't have enough wiggle room.
All right, yeah, that's probably unlikely the more we look at it. Next one is Mongolz taking on FURIA. Mongolz obviously already know.
They have a recent head-to-head, don't they?
Do they?
Dallas, yeah. They played in Dallas. That was the first event with Molodoy and Yakinda. Yakinda played very, very well in stage 2.
Yakinda was sweet.
He played very well.
I like that as well. I mean, dude, I'm so happy about that too because his drop-off never made any sense to me. It never made any sense how you could go from, like, it wasn't just like a drop-off in terms of, like, I'm missing kills. It was a drop-off in terms of, like, my brain is so disconnected from Counter-Strike that I look like I haven't played this game.
I think he caught a case of the
yips?
the social medias.
Okay, yeah.
I think the level of scrutiny that he got, because remember when he first came into Liquid, he found himself in this position where he essentially became the captain and the leader of the team overnight, because it was like, yeah, I'm updating these guys on like the meta of how European Counter-Strike's meant to be played, which was seen at the time as a real positive thing. But then because he was that forward and that... because he's a confident guy, Yakinda. Like, he's a nice guy to talk to. He seems like a genuine person, but he does have a confidence about him, which you should do if you're a Counter-Strike player who's in aggressive roles. I understand that.
Yeah.
I don't look at it as arrogance. I know Yanko in the past has framed it that way, but I think essentially what happened to him was the scrutiny for a young man can get to you, and I think that it probably did, and then you start to doubt everything you do. And then he was a hard worker. I heard from Twists and Justin that he would always work very hard.
Yeah, he was one of the guys busting their ass all the time,
but it wasn't manifesting, right? So it's probably
it's probably a perfect storm, right? Like,
well, there's a fun term that I hear Chael Sonnen use when I listen to his podcast about UFC stuff. I think I've referenced this before, but he calls it paralysis by analysis. So I think maybe over-analyzing his game to the point of, like the thing that you were saying.
Yeah, like, on a team basis with Falcons as an individual basis, you're hyper-analyzing every single detail, so then you almost box yourself in a situation where you think no decision is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on some level I'm always like it came at a perfect storm timing, right? Like it was just when he gave up the reins of in-game leader, trying to work himself back into being a star player, probably paranoid that he might not be able to get it back, probably struggling with the concept of, narrowing your thought from the team-wide, map-wide angle of an IGL to more narrow focus as an entry fragger and as a first player, combined with the struggles, which then brought on the social media barrage, which then brought on the lack of confidence, which just got worse and worse and worse. And
you look at the framing in this team, he's only temporarily signed for FURIA.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if they have a good result, they might want to get him more permanently.
They might already have made that decision based off...
Okay, Jason, tell us what you know.
I don't know anything. Haven't been told a word.
All right, well, that could happen based off of this, but right now you would feel that you're in an unbridled position unless it has been said that he is staying, and we don't know.
Yeah.
In terms of the pressure, because you're only there temporarily and you're essentially getting a free crack at a major that otherwise you probably shouldn't have been at.
Sure. Oh, yeah, and you have to pick up that baton and run with it. Yeah. And again, good to see him being prepared for the situation.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Mongolz as well has looked really good. He young Opper, rookie Opper. I know through stage 2 he looked like he was really sharp in terms of taking his plays, taking his aggression, and not shying away from anything. So I think FURIA looks good right now. I think we're not giving probably enough credit over to someone like Fallen. I think like for... I'll glaze him a little bit here because I just think you don't see players...
You like him, so glaze him. It's fine.
But you don't see players make this kind of decision, especially with the kind of resume he has as a 2-time major winner, as a Hall of Famer, essentially, as one of the one of the most meta-defining operas we've ever had in Counter-Strike in terms of his era with LG and SK, Godfather of Brazilian. Like, you don't see players of his caliber and his pedigree and his resume making the decision to voluntarily step away from the op, to bring in a new, young, talented opper, and to take up kind of like, quote-unquote bitch role of being like the anchor, and especially when you consider his age and his how much he has to adapt and change his style. I know talking to him as well, he's like, my brain actually feels like it knows the right decisions when I'm anchoring. It's just like actually going through the motions of defending against it and making plays still feels a little bit weird to him, like the philosophy of what he's supposed to do in different situations. So I think he's done a really admirable job in those roles as well throughout this major so far. So I give a lot of credit over to Fallen, because without that kind of humility, they don't bring Mongolz in, and they don't bring Yakinda in.
Yeah, but I think it also shows you how bad things were at the FURIA camp.
Yeah,
right?
that's the other angle for sure.
Right, like their decision, they needed to change something.
That's the less glazing angle. That's just the standard donut.
Look, there's still respect for him for making that transition, but it feels like it's a necessary one, right?
Sure.
So I think that it's a good sign that we had 3 Brazilian teams make it through, because the conversation, especially if like those teams continue to tank like they were doing, like Legacy is the pop-off extreme. The other 2 or 3, including MIBR, have just been middling points of disappointment throughout the season.
Yeah.
So if they didn't even make it to stage 3, I don't think that would have been too much of a surprise considering what we've seen. So props to them for even being able to make that point in the tournament. Now to be able to do it against the other best teams in the world, the best of ones are going to be their best opportunities to crack in.
You think they have what it takes to take out Mongolz?
I don't think so. I think that in the group stage environment, this is where we will still get the best state of Mongolz. They're used to playing in these studio events. They're having, or studio stage of the tournaments. They don't have issues at this point.
Yeah.
The only problem is they're coming in cold, and they are player for player other than Molodoi, less experienced. Like, vastly, compared to every member on FURIA, and in like Fallen, Queserado, Yuri, Yakinda. They're all much more experienced. So that's the only detracting point I would say for the Mongolz.
Although I would say recently, Mongolz have more experience with more success.
Of course, yes, I would agree. I think, look, I love watching the Mongolz play. I love the way that they get to represent the region. I'm very proud that a team, even from a smaller region, being one for myself, is able to play at such a high level. And I hope that they make it to the playoffs, and I hope that they have a deep run. Because I really enjoy the characters within that team. They're obviously not as comical as a G or Amelia, but I think Mizinho is actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting some personality nowadays. They're breaking into it. I think they're really starting to enjoy the limelight a little bit.
Senzu has an attitude about him, which I think is fun too. He has that arrogant swag. I think Blitz has a more quiet arrogance to him.
You can tell he's a chess player, Blitz.
Well, yeah, he's got that Magnus Carlsen
cerebral.
Kind of, yeah. But yeah, look, I hope the best for Mongolz. And again, I've iterated this story already 3 or 4 times. So they're one of the teams that I would love to see in the playoffs of this event.
Yeah, like to fully enjoy the playoffs, I think they have to be there after the year they've had.
People came here for betting advice on who to pick. They've come to the wrong podcast. We're just kind of talking about why we like all these teams. Right. We need Yanko here.
Why the matchup is cool.
Yeah,
we do. We don't really have a negative. No,
but that's okay. Maybe this is what people need.
Yeah, less negativity in your lives.
Yeah.
I think that should be a really cool game, though. I think Fury has a chance at it.
Okay.
I think that would be fun. I think that'd be a really cool match. Aurora versus FaZe.
So this is a fun one, I think. I think FaZe have had a roller coaster already. It was very up, then it was quite down, and then it was up again. And we got to see some really cool moments. I've enjoyed the banner from Carrigan, obviously some flashes from Simple, and like you love to say, you don't stop saying it on the desk. You keep talking about sample sizes. You keep saying it. It has to be over a longer period of time. You can't stop talking about it. So,
I know. I just can't shut up.
But overall, with the FaZe team, I think that they're such a vibes team that'll determine the way they play on the day. Like, they were much more quiet in the 2 best-of-3s that they lost. Yep. Obviously, Simple was telling Dumao to shut the fuck up, which is fair, because Dumao does yell.
Yeah, but then you got to back it up and make him.
Yeah. He did have a good round, but that was about it. So I think that if the vibes are able to be like they were against MIBR and like they were on day one, like it felt like they had more of a chip on their shoulder or something to prove on those days.
Match. It was an easy thing to get fired up.
And that carried through into Tai Lu.
If I'm Kerrigan, I'm thinking Michael Jordan this whole time. I'm inventing ways to piss off my teammates. I'm coming up and I'm like, yo, Simple, like Xantaras told me yesterday that you fucking
What's there to hate about Aurora?
He told me you're fucking washed.
What's there to hate about Aurora, right? Like, there's just a fun bunch of guys that we don't, like, I like Madja. Yeah. I know that he gets a bit of heat from some other people online for sure, but I like him.
I do too.
I think that Joda and Wakadia are amazing for their level of experience in the team. I think that overall, if you get Joda, Wakadia, Xantares, and Woxic all shooting at 80% of their possible firepower, they're a very, very strong team. Mm-hmm. That's like, whether that's enough to beat, they're the only team to beat Vitality this year.
That's so weird to think about.
Yeah.
That's so weird. It's 30 straight for Vitality right now.
Yeah. And the only one they lost was back at Bounty. And that was, that was at the start of the year where EF were in the final. Now they're Aurora, obviously.
Yeah. Aurora's such a weird team for me to like analyze, though. Like, eye test wise, I've thought they've looked like shit like the last 3 events I've seen.
Really? I think they get accused of being too defaulty.
Ever since Pro League.
One-dimensional.
Ever since I watched them lose in the Pro League playoffs.
To Navi or this year?
I think it was Navi this year.
It was
not the final last year. Okay. No, this most recent season. They didn't make it all the way to the playoffs. Who did they end up losing to in that event? Let's see. It was like a nuke game. I remember talking about it a lot at Pro League on the desk. I just saw like so many questionable decisions and so many like chokes, bad decisions made in like post plants. And that was a game they lost like 4 post plants and like in the first half. And ever since then, every time I watch them, I don't know if it's like a little bit of bias of that sticking around in my head too long, but every time I watch them, I'm like, they don't look clean, they don't look sharp, but they finish it pretty decent at events.
They've been in every playoff this year.
Which is why I'm also like sat there and I'm like, okay, well, on one level, I don't think they look great, but they're still going deep in events. So if they ever figure it out, maybe they're just going to be awesome.
Well, the playoffs is getting to the playoffs. I don't think will be a problem for them, just based off of the level, unless they get too stressed. But the playing on stage is still the biggest bane of Mongolz and Aurora.
I think they have too much of like a crumble potential for me.
In groups?
Just in like games in general. Like, not so much groups. I just feel like when I don't have confidence in them late in games to win clutch moments and clutch rounds. which scares me. I feel like they're like the opposite of FaZe. Well, maybe not the opposite, but they both have like this kind of vibe check where it's like FaZe. I hate vibe analysis, but I think with FaZe, with the situation and the kind of the puggy nature of bringing Simple in last minute, I think that is always going to be a factor, especially when they don't have a map pool. The vibes better be fucking good because you're going to be playing on a map that
you have no reps on.
Yeah, right, exactly. I think that could actually, I mean, if they come out hot, I think Aurora is a team that I could see like capitulating a little bit. If they just get kind of smoked like the first 6-7 rounds.
I just feel like Aurora's fundamentals are going to be too strong for FaZe. There's going to be too many holes in FaZe's game. The only way is like a classic both pistols. And Carrigan on the fly can outcall Major.
Yeah.
And that's where I think one of Carrigan's biggest strengths are, is calling like that. So,
but but that comes down to vibes too, because it's like as long as the players are confident in him calling on the fly. Yes. I know speaking to some of his, speaking to Dupree while here, he was like that's always one of the things is like Carrigan calling on the fly is incredible, but once you lose faith in that, you know, like if you're calling on the fly and he calls for a pop through a smoke and you guys just get sprayed down jumping out the other side, no one's going to listen to him the next time he says pop through the smoke. You know, like
No, I feel that. I guess it's hard to quantify then, right? So I feel like Aurora are a known quantity. They've made every playoffs of every event they played this year. So it's 8 or 9 events, something along those lines, which is crazy, right?
Yeah, it actually is impressive.
Because they were attending everything under the sun. Then they took a bit of a break, which I think was necessary. But yeah, the fact that they've made so many playoffs is amazing. And I think it's testament to how good they've been over the course of the year. Whereas for FaZe, obviously, theirs is just more about, you know, the FaZe shows in town, right? Get it while it's hot. Get your tickets because anything can happen. And I would love to see FaZe being one of those other 3 names in the playoffs just for the pure entertainment factor. Because once they get onto the stage, we can continue to have the same conversation that everybody hates. Oh, FaZe, they're so good on stages. People hate that conversation, but it's like it exists for a reason.
Yeah,
guys.
I apologize. It's just the way the world works.
Well, and then Stat Andy's come up and go, well, actually,
you know what's funny is actually probably the struggles they had in stage 2 are probably really fucking good for them. Yeah. Like playing the maximum number of games, having the pressure situation, seeing how this team is going to react under pressure, coming out on top of it, all things you can use moving forward into the next stage. But the more reps FaZe gets, again, like another thing where you obviously don't want to go 2-2 and play in that deciding game at the end of the day. But if FaZe do go that way, that's not the worst thing in the world because, again, it's just more repetition. It's just more opportunities to practice, essentially.
I just think the loss to 3D Max and the loss to Legacy are concerning, because they completely disappeared. They weren't in those matches. Like I did the
not
3D,
even individually, it felt like.
I did the 3D Max game after the MIBR Falcons game, so obviously stakes were a lot lower in that scenario because one team went through and one wasn't eliminated. But FaZe, the only rounds were like individual multi-kills or clutches. Yeah. And that's like, guys, you're not winning a game like that. It needs to be more team-based.
Now that you've seen how it's played out, don't you wish you had the Falcons FaZe for elimination? Now that we've lost one anyways, wouldn't a Falcons FaZe in the elimination been so much fucking better?
Because the disbelief of them losing to MIBR, right?
Okay, yeah.
Like, if they lost to FaZe, it's like, well, they lost to FaZe. Yeah. But losing to MIBR, and again, no disrespect to MIBR, I like Insani. I think Breno's been... I think Breno
was a revelation in those matches.
Well, that's the thing, because Breno was out. He was in, and then he got kicked out for Lukowski. Then they got rid of Drop. Then Eggs goes back to in-game leader. Then Breno comes in, and he starts playing some of Drop's positions. And he's actually great in the retakes. He's a real X-factor.
Oh, he's been sick, yeah.
Those are the toughest positions. When I play Counter-Strike, the position I hate the most is when I have to play like an extremity, and it's like... hey man, we're in a 3v5 situation and we somehow need to get back into this bomb site, and if you don't get a multi-kill, we win it. It's like, I don't know where they are. You lost the site. They could be everywhere.
Multi-kill, huh?
Oh, okay. Yeah, right, easy as that. Yeah, great.
Would you like 2 or 3?
Oh, it's just so fun. But I think like I'm happy that... Well, not happy. I enjoyed the MIBR Falcons story.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a fair angle.
Yeah. What else we got?
Well, you want to touch on Simple at all?
You can talk about Simple. You love him.
Everyone knows I just think this major for me, like I do hate to some degree. Like he's been fine. He's been fine, dude. Like
better than Modesty.
What like he gets like Simple gets like a lot of easy like, oh, he's back. He does. They come quickly with the community. I've noticed that. But I sit here and I'm like, am I the only one who thinks it would have been way cooler if we just saw Simple grinding for like 3 months, 2 months, and he was ready for this opportunity? Like, why do we have to say, oh, great, he managed to qualify for stage 2. Now he gets more time to practice and warm up and get used to it. Like, why isn't he just... He could have been ready. Instead of flashes, we could have real Simple. It's sad. I do. Like, people think I hate him. I want the real simple, but I want the real simple where the indications, like, on his fucking, at his peak, on his rise, when he was becoming the greatest player in the world, it was all grind. It was all playing at all hours of the day. And now I have to be like, yeah, this was a great round. This was a cool flash of the old simple we knew. But then there's these 3 rounds where he ran into a wall trying to run away from a flashbang.
Yeah, but isn't it fun watching him power up? Isn't it fun watching him power up? And now Jason will be against levels of players that he respects.
It's so appropriate that I'm sitting in the fucking cuck chair during this conversation.
He'll be against the level of player he respects now.
Yeah, but they're going to bang him out.
And maybe they do. Yeah. Or maybe FaZe made the playoffs and magic is real.
Honestly, I don't want this because I want FaZe in the playoffs as well.
There it is.
Like, that would be an incredible story. And that would be a fun thing. It would be a fun thing to track. But I'd have a lot more fun with it if I knew which simple I was going to get on that stage. But if I could confidently say we've got 75% GOAT status back in FaZe.
But we haven't been able to say that about FaZe for even though they made the last 2 major finals. Every time we've gone into one of their arena events, it's, well, if FaZe do what they do on stages. Now it's the same. It's simple's perfect.
Yeah.
We don't even have to change the narrative. It's just, it's just now, it's great.
Yeah,
so,
that's fair.
And also, wouldn't it be great to have a Liege in front of the home crowd at a major again?
Yeah,
right? That'd be great. It'd be good for John.
Yeah, it would be. He'd love it.
Because he's made for the longest time, my understanding was that John really wanted to make sure that he stayed in America.
Yep.
Right? When he was on Liquid, he wanted to make sure that all the time wasn't overseas, that he could spend some time in the States to spend time with his partner, his dog, and be able to live a relatively normal life, which...
selfish, really.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah,
though?
It's fucking
but now he's taken the leap and he's moved to an international team because it's the only way that he can compete at the level that he wants to. And it would be great for for him as like a proof of purchase that this was the right choice to then make it to the top 8 of a major after a bit of a downturn of time. And I think, for somebody who is of the pedigree of player that he is, he could earn it, right? Because he's had some nice moments. Like Frozen's had nice moments. Alicia's had some nice moments. So I think that, it would be nice to get a good-looking FaZe.
Let's say they do make the playoffs. The peak of FaZe you've seen so far in stage 2, how far do you think they would go in the playoffs?
They would lose in the quarterfinals.
You think lose in the quarterfinals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, unless they're against Mongolz or Aurora.
Sure. Then there's a chance. G2 versus 3D Max is the next one. And I guess I might put G2 as my own 3 pick'ems.
So they've actually played a little bit against each other. I think like at the last couple of events, they've actually played one another. Now, G2 didn't boot camp coming into this. There's a lot of things to keep in mind with G2. Obviously, Soren and Sampaius.
Yep.
So here we go. No, they haven't played a lot. They just played in Dallas. So Dallas, they played in Shanghai.
That was the only matchup this year.
Yeah, and that went 3 maps. So
2-1 for G2.
Which is crazy because they were able to do that with Hades, right? Which is the question mark of this team. And I guess the question mark isn't necessarily about Hades and can he deliver. It's just the half-life of this team is over.
Yeah. Well, that's the question is what are they playing for?
I guess that the bare bones remnants is going to be Heavy God, Mouz. I guess Taz is gone.
Yeah,
Saw's coming in. And then do you keep Hunter and Snacks and just bring in Sampaius? Because that's okay. Or do you be more audacious and look for something else? And then what does that even look like now that Shui's been picked up permanently by Liquid?
I mean, I think if you're G2 GM, you are open to everything while you're at this major.
Sure.
And I think certainly you're going to see which IGLs might be available, you're probably sitting here and being like, okay, which IGL's crashing out early that I might be able to talk to, might be able to sway over.
Hooksy.
But I think,
No, he's not coming back to G2.
That's a good point. I didn't really think about that, but I was just thinking about the actual team, and I was like, yeah, Hooksy would be pretty G2, yeah. But that'd be the question: is if a good one's available, do you go for it? I think it'd be crazy not to consider it.
But imagine this. So let's say you kept Snacks and you added Tania. I think Tania's been great. Like you buy another player from Heroic, obviously their pockets would keep getting bigger. Or Hunter in-game leads, you add Tania. But either way, I think we're talking about the wrong thing.
Sure.
We should be talking about how they're going to go. And I think because of the head-to-head, they'll have confidence in that matchup. It obviously went 3, and this is a best of 1. I think this is where 3D Max having warmed into the environment will be at their advantage.
Yeah.
I also think that the way that they played CS at this event was slightly more comprehensive than what I've seen from them in previous events, which was much more shock and awe in your face. So
It seems like they're trying to develop something out of like the gimmicky, away from the more gimmicky stuff.
Yeah.
Away from like the really off meta, like little trick plays.
Yeah, and they still have them. Like Gravity played at most of his rounds with the Mac 10 out of choice, right? Like out of choice. He had money for guns.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just curious to see.
Without Monacy, they placed 9th to 11th at PGL Astana and 7th to 8th at IEM Dallas.
Yeah, I don't have them going through.
Okay.
To the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't have them going through the playoffs.
No.
Like I said, I might even put them as 0-3.
I have put them as 0-3.
I haven't gone through the simulator just yet, but I have such a lack of confidence in this team's firepower, but not in the sense that they don't have it, just in the sense that I don't think we're going to see the best version of the firepower because it's, I mean, here's the question. Would you rather be on Heroic or on G2? Would you rather know that you have two teammates leaving, or would you rather know that you have 2 new players coming in?
It depends on if the people in G2 know who's getting replaced.
Okay.
Like if you're Snacks and you know that you're going, I think it's a different story because then now he's playing for his next team.
Yeah.
If he doesn't know if he's getting replaced or not, it kind of sucks because there's the ambiguity in that situation.
Yeah, and there's that stress hanging over your head.
Yeah, without the full picture of information, I would say that I would rather be Heroic in this situation because you know that it's a Hail Mary last attempt, whereas there's more pressure knowing that you're trying to play for your spot.
Sure. Yeah.
As opposed to knowing it's over no matter what.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I look, in that head-to-head, I think I haven't seen G2 play in some time, obviously. And I have liked what I've seen from 3D Max. So I'd back 3D Max just off of form.
Yeah. But
you can't really talk about form when you haven't seen G2 play. So it's not a take to the bank type prediction. It's just a gut feeling, and I'm sure I'll be incorrect. We have like 1 or 2 teams left, I guess.
One more matchup.
Okay. Who we got?
Natus Vincer versus Namiga. My favorite team. And Navi, I guess Navi's a team we don't really know really much about. Do you know if they boot camped? I imagine they boot camped. That's a boot camp team.
Navi boot camped.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think look, in that game, if Navi can't beat Namiga, then they're not making playoffs.
I think Namiga's good.
I don't think Namiga... Look, okay. I think Namiga has a potential that we probably won't get to see manifest because I imagine some of the players will get poached going forward. I think Xanta and Zwei are quite good. I think Khan is one of those AWPers that you might pick up and throw on an international team if you need somebody type thing. Lear is hilarious.
Yeah,
I really enjoy his smack talk.
Yeah,
right?
It's been incredible.
But I feel like, this type of a team is ripe for the poaching. So to see them become good, I don't think we'll get... Like, they played decent. I don't think we'll ever see them become, like, good going forward. Because, like, let's look at the teams that they beat, right? Like, the best scalp that they took, I think, was Heroic. Like, beating up on M80...
Not impressive.
Like Jason, you, me, Hugo, Harry, and Alex could probably do that at the moment. I'm joking, M80. Obviously, you're going to beat us in the pug. If I have to say that, then people... they will. Like, so look, it's 16-12 against
Heroic,
MIBR.
M80, and MIBR, yeah.
So,
and then lost to 3D Max, lost to Pain.
Yeah, so...
Okay.
I think that they're fine, and I think that it's great to put some of the individuals in the shop window. It's been really good to watch Leah's banter. I think they're an entertaining team to watch, but I don't think, in my mind, that they will be able to beat Navi.
I think if Navi doesn't make the playoffs, there has to be a roster change.
I think there's a roster change anyway.
Okay.
Just based off of what I've been hearing. I think that... talking with Striker and stuff, he never gives me information, but, you ask a question and the type of answer I get kind of informs whether he's heard something
gives you
or
an
not.
Indication,
so I
points you in the direction.
know. I have to guess, and I never really know, but I think the thing is, it seems like there's discontent with a lot of teams right now and the complexion of their rosters. But Navi could save themselves with a strong result, but they wouldn't do the same thing as like after Copenhagen. It's not like a Copenhagen win into, now we'll hold on to our team. They need something. They need a spark.
That's my point about this major, I think, because I think this major is going to dictate a lot. I think it's going to be like, I mentioned a couple episodes back, and I put them in like kind of a similar category. Remember when Yanko kind of mentioned like guys like teams like, Aurora kind of like fooled us into thinking they were in like Mongolz fooled us into thinking we were better than they actually are.
Yeah.
I feel like that's Navi last year.
Of course, right? But they won a major, and they had a really good.
It wasn't just the major though. They were awesome outside of the major as well. And this year coming in and looking this rough is like a shock. And like I know we had a last year where like JL had like a career peak that lasted like 7 months, which is insane to think about. Wonderful. Like
it was top 5 in the world.
Bid and Ema were just pumping out and like getting really comfortable in their roles. We're not seeing any of those flashes this year at all.
I think one of the common themes with, if people remember the list of players that I listed at the start when I was discussing the media day I did today, the first 4, one of the questions that I was asking kind of led them to talking about like team cohesion and chemistry. And well, actually the question was, what makes Vitality so strong?
Yeah.
And almost all of them answered like the team cohesion or the team chemistry was the right. Like obviously they have very good players. That was not the part, but it's like the fact that they can not read each other's mind, but they're on the same page, and it looks like they're having a good time together, which is normally what a honeymoon provides, right? It's that joyous period at the beginning before the cracks start to form, and the damage of being a person and not communicating clearly and making assumptions does to one another, or going through heartbreaking moments where you hold resentment, right? Like we play a game, Alexi makes a call, we lose the game, me as a player, whether I blame him or not, right? I hold resentment because now I feel an emotion. I feel heartbroken. I feel devastated. I feel hollow. I feel sorrow. That is just going to be attached to wherever you feel that blame might go.
Yeah.
And even with these mental coaches and stuff, I still think it's hard for young men to be able to completely unload how they feel and be able to move past those things. It's something that I think I still struggle with as a human being now in other walks of my life. And I think that Na'Vi is probably run more like a business than it is like a Counter-Strike team. And I think Counter-Strike teams will forever have a recipe, a little bit of flair, a little bit of flavor to them, where a part of it either has to be this militant drive where everybody's on board as like a wake up at 6 a.m. and we know what, we're taskmasters. That I don't think we've seen before. The other side of it, the one that I think you could look through all the recipes of the teams that have had time, is the enjoyment of being and playing with each other. When you look at a Fnatic when they were strong, that was the type of team where Flusher and JW were like, those mega geeks, and like they were on the same page. They, those guys.
Oh, and also they were universally hated, so they had like a center point to latch onto as a team.
But then you look at things like NIP, like they got along really well. Like Forest, Get Right, Exist, like those guys, they got, and that's why they kept Fifi for so long as well. Yeah. Freiburg, they were good friends, and they're friends after the fact. Astralis, like same type of thing. Like they kind of then brought the professionalism in, but they definitely got along. Like the fact that Device, Dupree, right, these guys stuck with each other. Zipex,
so long, right? Zipex as well.
Obviously they had some harder times, but I think that one of the key elements that they would probably say is the fact that they were getting along with each other and that they had that team chemistry. And I think for Na'Vi that maybe that doesn't exist because I don't seem to see it manifest in the same way. And they say in these things, oh yeah, it's just the way we talk to each other and the way we get frustrated. And I'm okay with that. I'm happy to buy into that line. I just don't think that because of that, they're going to be in a position where they can win.
It hasn't seemed like it's been like the healthy kind that gets them to the other side yet. Like but we haven't seen the breakthrough on the other side.
I don't want to be an armchair analyst in that way,
right?
But like, what else do I have to go off of?
Yeah.
Poor results and bad in-game posturing. That It's
like the Falcons thing. It's like at a certain point, I just have nowhere else to turn to.
Exactly. If what are the excuses?
Yeah. Well, that's why I kind of like the Namiga story as well, because it's like I think the Namiga side of things is one thing that kind of is really cool about this team is how often do you see a team, especially at the level that Namiga's been at, they bombed out of the Shanghai RMRs and stayed together. All 5 players and the coach are the same exact roster back from Shanghai. So when you go on about that, I'm like, well, that's why I feel like Navi's so upset prone at the moment, because I think Namiga has all of those things that you just mentioned they're missing. They have players who have been grinding together, players who went through that catastrophic failure in Shanghai. They have players who have been working hard together, getting together, intentionally stuck together, built up to this moment, and now they're sharing success as well. So I feel like a lot of these teams in this stage from stage 2 have those qualities. Legacy has the same thing as well. There's a lot of that fire of like these new teams who, they're not going to let a bad round dissuade them and knock them off their goal. Lynn Vision and Tai Lu are playing to improve the standing of Chinese Counter-Strike within the world stage.
Sure.
They're not going to lose sight of that goal by losing a stupid round or a stupid force buy. I think teams like Na'Vi, teams like FaZe, teams like Vitality, maybe Vitality a little bit less, but certainly those kind of favorite teams, you're going to get frustrated if a round doesn't go your way because you're going to feel like, you're the better team and you should have played it better and it was your mistake. And it's easy to kind of fall into the blame game. Especially, I mean, I put Vitality in there. I shouldn't have, because I think Vitality has enough success to get over that, obviously. But there are going to be those teams that get hitched up when a round goes incorrect.
Yeah, I think the thing with Vitality is like they've obviously shown that they've had some really stressful moments, and Apex has clearly gotten quite, but we've even heard in moments like on train in that, was it the Mouz game? Maybe it was a Vitality Falcons game. Either way, like they lost some. It was a Falcons game. They lost like an eco round, and then they lost they lost 2 3v5s or something like that on outside on train. And then Apex was like got mad at them, but in like a way of like, boys, we need to be better than this. Yeah. Then they win the eco round in the next, and that kind of like revitalizes them. So yeah, I see what you're saying there. I kind of just wonder, because Bait obviously had a strong performance, and Na'Vi always were the Ukrainian national team. And they're moving away from that now. But it's like, I don't think Bit would be happy with this out of all. Like, Wonderful, it's not that he doesn't have a choice, but he's definitely not of the same pedigree as a Bit. He hasn't experienced as much in his career. But like, let's say that you had Wonderful, Bit, MPL. You got like Kenzie's always pretty damn sharp. I thought he was decent. Yeah. Like you had Ascenthio, Alex, and there's one more guy that I'm forgetting. Fuck.
From Bait?
MPL, Ascenthio, Alex, Kenzie's or
Headtrick.
Oh, Headtrick. Well, Headtrick wouldn't get the spot because we already have Wonderful. But like, if Na'Vi went back to to a national roster, I wonder if that would help restore some of that identity that you were talking about. Okay. But it would be like a huge step back. And the problem is, you would have to keep 3 players of your core right now to maintain the VRS spots. So it is kind of a silly conversation in general. I'll just put it back in the bottle and we'll pretend I never said it. Sorry, everybody.
And that's the fun of the podcast. We go down roads with ideas and they don't pan it anywhere, and you get to watch live.
Yeah, I don't really think before I speak. The words just come out.
It just happens and you're like, I didn't really like that thought. I'll just throw it away.
I think our talking is what most people call thinking.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah. Well, that's sometimes what you have to do when you've done a 9-hour media day and an hour and a half long podcast.
And the people who have worked actual days are like, this fucking bitch. I just want to let everybody know I have in my life worked actual proper work days. And at no point would I say that my work day is anywhere near as hard as your work day. What I do is a piece of cake and a dream. It's just like I'm going day after day.
Some days where the brain is fried.
And I would have enjoyed the ability to keep my routine up today.
A proper day off.
Yeah, now it's not even a day off, just not fucking a full day in a boiling hot studio coming up with concepts to make content for Blast.
Well, we've hit our limit. We've hit our hour and 40 minutes.
Damn, we did good for just 2 guys. Two guys
stumbling into a hotel room. There's going to be no audio issues. We've got cameras zooming in now. Like, this whole podcast thing is really taking off.
Yeah. Again, I'd love to contact the Guinness Book of World Records to see if anybody else has ever done as many hotel room podcasts as us, because I don't think so.
Yeah. There's probably someone who does like hotel room reviews who does a podcast.
Is that a okay? If it's a podcast, that counts.
That doesn't count. That's a technicality.
If it's a vlog, it doesn't count.
Okay.
It needs to be a podcast.
It needs to be a podcast. Yeah. I like that.
Needs at least 2 dudes and someone has to be in a cock chair. That's Jason's search history, everybody.
That's going to be the name of our biography. Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, on that note, see you guys later.
Bye.